Farmers for Safety has been going quite strong, and we will hear from mentors later on. But just to introduce and talk to you about it, and indeed about farm safety from a governmental perspective, I would like to ask you to welcome Minister Martin Hayden. Thank you for being here.
Thanks very much, Seamus. Thanks for the very kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here with you today. So many faces and people I recognise now who I would consider good friends at this stage, having been working in the sphere and the area of farm safety since my appointment back in July 2020. And it's great to be progressing along where we've managed to establish policies and projects and get to a point where we can be doing evaluations and reviews on such projects. Special mention to Rose Green National School, which was a lovely way to start today. And what struck me as I sat there, I was actually thinking of my 4 little ones at home on our farm in South Kildare that me and my wife raised. Our eldest is 8, he'll be doing his first communion in May, and the youngest is 2. And we have farm safe school programs. We have ways of identifying and harnessing the pester power of kids in a really positive way to get kids to turn to their parents and say, what you're doing at the farm isn't safe and it can be safer, as opposed to when I was 44 years ago, a young boy on my uncle's farm asked me, can I get on top of the load of bales as we head back on the road, and that being okay. Thankfully now that wouldn't be socially acceptable anymore. But while the message they're learning in that song is really important, what are we all about here? We're about making sure that they remain safe on their farms, that their mammy and daddy remain safe on their farms and reduce the risk of what it is they do in their family farm every day, and that their grandparents stay safe on the farm. So well done, Liam. I just think it was a lovely way to start today, and while it was a nice song, there's a much deeper message and meaning behind it that I think gets to the heart of why we're all passionate about farm safety and why we all, in our various guises, so many people in this room are dedicated to this cause, to making a change. I think it's a really good way of doing that. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleague here from the Oireachtas, Senator Garrett Ahern, from Tipperary here. When I told Garrett I was coming down to attend this very important farm safety conference, Garrett said, you'll give me a bit of time in Tipperary, and I think I'm due to leave here at about 6:30 this evening between farm visits and distilleries and meeting the IFA and a number of different things. So we'll have a busy day today, Garrett, and I know, and thank you for your support in the Oireachtas on all things agriculture, because you're a great advocate for us in the Shannon here as well. Seamus, I want to thank you for the introduction and the welcome here too, and to say to you that you have a real gem in Niamh Nolan, because she has been an absolute star. Her energy, her enthusiasm, her passion for the thing, and the fact that she's absolutely filled all my timelines on social media since this project first started. It's bordered on Farmers4Safety are tweeting on their Instagram and everything all happens at one time, but it's been brilliant, and it's shown that enthusiasm and stuff. And we'll talk a little bit about the project in a while and different elements it's had. But beyond social media, which is really, really important, the other thing that really struck me was the presence that the project had at all the agricultural shows in the area last summer. So this was a project that had a very core peer-to-peer approach, but actually taking that with a level of energy and enthusiasm that all the mentors did. Great credit to the mentors across Tipperary, Wexford and Cork, and that engagement. They're signed up to a project, they're getting supported by the department, and acknowledge the presence of my department officials here for their work with you in the early stages and that. They're setting up those projects like the other EIPs, and then just taking it to a different level, which this project did. I was delighted and honoured to be at the launch of it, and I'm really delighted to be here today as well, because I just want to acknowledge the dedication and passion that everyone had involved. I'm delighted to be able to be part of that. So look, why are we here? Why are we doing projects like this? Because farming continues to be the most dangerous occupation in terms of fatalities in the workplace with children and elderly and particularly vulnerable. It has a poor safety record, as we know, accounting for approximately 2 in 5 of all fatal workplace incidents over the past decade. Yet agriculture only accounts for a little over 6% of our entire workforce. So we are a huge outlier and disproportionately affected. Sadly, there's already been 1 confirmed fatality on a farm to date this year, with 13 confirmed cases in 2022. In recent years, we have seen a reduction in the number of fatal incidents compared to the long-standing average of 20 fatalities a year. But 1 is still 1 too many, and I'm always very cautious talking about statistics, because ultimately it's what drives us to do better. But behind each and every one of those numbers is a family and a community with a devastating loss. And we know where the risk is too. It's not an easy nut to crack. If it was, it would have been done long before now. But we do know where the hazards are. We know farm vehicles and machinery, livestock and falling from a height accounts for most of the fatalities. Research also shows that there are approximately 4,500 non-fatal incidents each year on Irish farms, some of which result in life-changing injuries. And we don't talk about these enough either. They don't get the same limelight as a fatality might, but each one has the potential to be so easily a very, very serious one. And I was struck, but perhaps not surprised, reading a recent report about a study carried out by a medical student in UCC that found farmers in their 50s who are dealing with cows in the month of February are the most likely to end up in hospital with some sort of fracture or injury. And mindful of the time of the year we are and the activity that's happening on all of our farms right now. Because too many of us know or have heard of a farmer that was injured during the calving season, and right now up and down the country farmers are in the calving sheds doing their very best to successfully deliver calves and ensure that they get the best start in life. But many of them are doing so at a cost to themselves and their farms too. The farmer is the farm's greatest asset, and we need to see a change in mindset across the sector that puts safety and well-being first, because if farmers really believe that, they wouldn't take the risks that they take with their own health and safety. But because farm safety to me is not just about preventing injuries, but also about farmers taking care of their health and well-being. The two are inextricably linked. A busy and distracted mind is just as dangerous as a cracked manhole cover or a damaged PTO shaft. Focusing on this project, Farmers4Safety is one of 8 European Innovation partnerships focusing on farm safety, health and well-being that we've focused on and supported in the department. And it's my experience that farm safety EIPs have risen to the challenge to tackle the important issue, and I'm confident that we will identify potential solutions which can be scaled up and used more widely around farms. So this isn't just about the individual farmers that you, the mentors, have been dealing with, and that is important. But it's why I want to be there to start and why I want to be here today in terms of evaluating the project, and the team in the department have that ongoing process as well. Because as I said to you on that first day of the launch, it wasn't just about the individual farmers we were dealing with, but it was about us learning from the benefits of the peer-to-peer elements and also the challenges of it, the scalability of it, the resource heavy nature of it, but how effective is it, and how can we maybe translate that out into future national policy across the country. And the strength of the project also is the team of project partners, the operational group members and the mentors, as I mentioned, coming together to engage with farmers and be a catalyst to change the social norms around farm safety, health and well-being. And at its heart, I've always felt what you do and have been doing is being ambassadors and encouraging the farmers you deal with to be ambassadors too. So where you had that passion and you built up that rapport as mentors with the individual farmers you were dealing with, those farmers then became advocates themselves within their own family unit and within their own community and spread that message further. And that's how you change culture. It's not in one big measure, it's that small, slow, steady work. The project utilised farmers' existing knowledge of farm safety, and using the buddy system, the mentor completed the risk assessment of the farmer as to spot hazards and risks that the farmer may not see because of their familiarity around the farm, something I've talked about regularly on the media and in different areas. And I know at home you don't identify the same hazards that you're looking at every day that a fresh pair of eyes will when they come in. The Farmers4Safety EIP has also harnessed that community spirit and mettle and the peer-to-peer learning in its approach to tackling the critical issue. Some of the results of the surveys conducted by the EIP are concerning, but tally with what we know is happening on farms. Almost a third of farmers work at least 60 hours a week on average for significant periods of the year. This creates a significant physical strain and also impacts on relationships, with over half of partners finding it difficult to spend time with their farming partner. Over 2/3 of farmers visit their GPs less than once a year, as farmers place the health of their livestock over that of their own. And almost half of farm families reported an injury or a near miss within the previous 3 years. The higher the frequency of near misses and minor injuries, then logically there also is an increased chance of serious or fatal incidents. And we've got to change that culture. Seamus touched on it in his introduction. We all know farmers who wear nearly as a badge of honour, oh, that was a close call, I'm sure you have them. that can't be acceptable anymore. The near misses is inextricably linked, the level of them is inextricably linked to the level of other incidents that happen as well. So let's reduce the near misses and everything else will follow. I was also very interested in how the Farmers4Safety EIP tackled the challenge of engaging with farmers, their families and community through a range of activities, from peer-to-peer mentoring, the attendance of shows as I mentioned, to the sticker competitions that involve the children, and get the children talking about it, getting every generation to engage and to talk about it. And it's encouraging to see the participation in the EIP raise awareness of health and safety and mental well-being, and particularly that farmers were significantly less likely to take risks that they would not allow others to take, or that they were in that space. And I look forward to hearing more about your assessment of the peer-to-peer mentoring and how farmers engage with this model for exchanging knowledge and the lasting impact that it had on behaviour. It is certainly something I believe has huge potential, as farmers are most likely to listen to their peers. You know, farmers are very stressed out a lot of the time. We know there are a huge amount of pressures. They are subjected to a number of different audits and inspections, and they're very stressful. So the peer-to-peer element is different to that. They don't need another layer of somebody coming in necessarily with a big stick to frighten them and distress them more. Sometimes a friendly word of, you know that's dangerous and you know you need to fix that now. And that's the other element of this, is the action piece. One thing identifying the hazard, the other is making sure it doesn't go on the long finger and isn't left there for another month that everyone might regret afterwards. So improving farm safety, health and well-being is challenging. It requires perseverance and determination, as Pat Griffin and others who have worked in this area far longer than me will attest to. And it will require that perseverance and determination to achieve long-term results. Since my appointment as Minister with Special Responsibility for Farm Safety, I have prioritised efforts to improve farm safety, health and well-being, and I've introduced a range of farm safety, health and well-being initiatives through the first ever dedicated funding in the Department of Agriculture. And we've also just introduced a new TAM scheme, which is a new increased rate for farm safety equipment at 60%. And ultimately, working with my team of officials in the department, what I've looked to do is to make sure that farm safety isn't something that's just talked about as a separate item on the agenda, but it's central to everything we do in the department. So when we're having a new TAM scheme, what's the farm safety element of that? When we're having a new beef scheme, how do we make that safer? How do we support farmers to invest in farm safety measures? And how do we raise awareness? When we're sending out letters to tell farmers about the new BIS single farm payment system, let's incorporate farm safety booklets and information into that. Let's never miss an opportunity when we engage with farmers to drive home that message that we have to identify risk and we have to do things safer. Because I feel really strongly that we need to enable farmers to get more farm safety equipment onto their farms, and that's where the TAMS piece is so important. Because, you know, anyone who's had a very significant incident on their farm will always think afterwards, will realise the financial cost of them maybe having a life-changing injury or being in hospital for a considerable length of time, trying to get someone to cover the work on the farm, all of that pressure and cost that could have been minimised with investment. But when there isn't the incident, that investment seems like that's not going to give an economic return, whereas if I buy more livestock, that might give an economic return. And it's trying to change that mindset and to make it easier for farmers to see the benefit of that investment. To allow them to replace broken or old slats, to install a proper handling and calving area capable of safely accommodating animals with the labour that's available, and putting up a camera or a light to make those late night calving checks easier and safer. But what will drive a real change on farms is farmers and their families, when each morning they get up and pull on their boots, that safety is the first thought in every day and not an afterthought. So look, I have gone on enough. I'm really delighted to be able to be here. I want to congratulate everyone involved in this project for their work on it. I want to thank you for inviting me to address the conference. But congratulate the EIP project and the project partners from Irish Wood Link, the Bride Project, Duncannon Blue Flag Farming and Community Scheme, the New Futures Farming Group and the HSA. As I said, a special mention to Niamh for her energy and her enthusiasm to make this happen. And I wish you all a very productive and successful conference today to continue this good work, and I look forward to continuing to engage with you into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to welcome as well, just when you mentioned the Bride Project, Donald Sheehan is here somewhere, and also Duncannon, Owen Kinsella, and of course our old friend Catherine Guest, representing New Futures Farm Group. You're very welcome here because you've been a really important part of the project, and without you we really couldn't have managed it. And I'd like to thank you, Minister, for those words, because I think You are absolutely right. You know, you have to put safety into the thinking. And if I may tell a story, when we did the original project, remember that, Pat? We had some mentors as well. Unfortunately, I inherited one of them because he comes to my farm every now and again to do, you know, checking out for cows and calf or ewes or whatever. And Joe is his name, you know, Pat. But Joe, before he does anything, he walks around the yard and he does a major inspection. And I am then embarrassed for the rest of the day because he's going to tell me precisely what I didn't notice. And I'm so conscious of that before he comes, I'll actually go around and look myself. But of course, if I was really properly managed, I would have it in my head anyway. And the thing is about mentoring, it actually puts, if you know the neighbour is a mentor and you work together, it gets into your head, this fella's going to notice that I left a foreground fork in the wrong place, or I did this, or I left the gate, or whatever I did. So I think it's a great system, and Minister, even though it's coming to a close, we will be coming back to you on this one. You will probably expect that, because as you mentioned, there has been huge excitement and progress made in this. It's a very limited project, as you know, but I think it has a great future, and I think that's why we will be back to you. You mentioned Niamh Nolan, and rightly so, she got a good round of applause because, of course, Niamh really took this almost as a personal crusade as well. And she's really, as you said, Minister, brought a lot of energy, a lot of activity, and indeed broadened out the project, I think, in a way that probably when we devised it, we weren't really thinking. So Niamh is going to give a presentation of exactly what the project is about. And I think one of my colleagues said, no, Niamh, all you have to do is deliver it nice and slow, because as you know, Niamh runs at 100 miles an hour. So Niamh, please, a good hand. And
good morning, everyone. I have a big head after all that. Thanks very much for coming for joining us today for Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project. I'd like to welcome Minister Martin Hayden, fellow colleagues and guests. So just thanks very much for being here, and of course thanks to Rose Green National School for the brilliant singing of our Farm Safety song which we launched. Well done to them all, and thanks again for taking the time to come and sing for us today. So today this conference will showcase the value of peer-to-peer mentor approaches in addressing farm safety, health and well-being, along with what are our achievements, learnings and recommendations that we have identified throughout this Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project. I would like to thank our project partners for their continuous help, support and guidance throughout the project partners, the steering group members, along with the mentors and participants involved in the project. So firstly, I'd just like to give you an overview of my presentation today. So I'll first begin by telling you a little information about myself, where I come from, the background to the Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project, why it was carried out, and then looking at the methodology to how we carried out the research, and the results and findings from the data we collected, while drawing on some conclusions and recommendations towards the latter end of the presentation. So just a bit of information about me. As you all know, my name is Niamh Nolan, and I'm from a small rural village northeast of Galway. I come from a farming background myself, with dry stock, completed a liberal arts degree in Mary Immaculate College, Limerick, and then went on to further my education in the University of Galway and studying a Masters in Rural Futures Innovation and Planning. I manage this Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project and have previous experience in rural development and social practice and with the Irish Rural Link and Wheel during the COVID-19 pandemic. So this project, as James touched on, was prepared and proposed by Irish Rural Link in partnership with the Bride Project, the Duncan and Blue Flag Farming Community Scheme, the New Futures Farming Group and the Health and Safety Authority, which carried out this project in the catchment areas. Unfortunately, deaths in agriculture are very high, as there is 18 deaths for every 100,000 people working on farms. The Health and Safety Authority also reports that the majority of these recent fatalities the Health and Safety Authority also reports that you're 7 times more likely to be killed while working on a farm rather than any other sector or industry in Ireland. From 2011 to 2020, there has been 207 farm fatalities occurred on Irish farms. Based on the Health and Safety Authority data, the majority of these recent fatalities have occurred in counties Cork, Tipperary and Wexford, where some of the most largest and most intensive farms are based in the country. From 2012 to 2021, Cork had 31 fatalities, Tipperary had 13 and Wexford had 12. The majority of these farm fatalities occurred above the age of 65, with vehicles being the most cause of these fatalities. Therefore, having adopted this peer-to-peer mentor approach, it has instigated a change in attitudes and behaviours towards farm safety, health and wellbeing, and created a safer farming working practices while keeping the sector safer for those who work, live and visit the farms. The project investigated farmers, farm families, attitudes and behaviours towards farm safety, health and wellbeing, created a change in culture in terms of safer working practices, created a farm safety network for farmers and farm families to exchange knowledge, create a buddy system and share the best practices. They also identified the opportunities and limitations faced by farmers, farm families when addressing and tackling the social norms that surround farm safety, health and wellbeing. Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project adopts a peer-to-peer mentor approach to engage farmers and farm families in attitudinal and behavioural change towards farm safety by tackling and improving social norms around farm safety and emotional wellbeing. This Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project would not have been a success without the 6 part-time farm mentors involved in this project in the catchment areas. They all brought an abundant amount of expertise, knowledge and experience to the project. And there are many advantages from this peer-to-peer mentor approach within the agriculture sector, as farmers speak the same language, literally and culturally are faced with similar problems and constraints, and by adopting a farmer-led approach, they become innovative in how they address these problems, such as farm safety, health and wellbeing. All of the 6 part-time mentors were the key drivers of this change on the ground, as they visited farmers, farm families at their place of work, assisted them if they required or needed help completing the Code of Practice Risk Assessment document, organised events and workshops that tailored to the needs of their farm safety network on the ground, attended agriculture shows and events, discussion groups, focus groups, created regional WhatsApp groups in the catchment areas to disseminate up-to-date information on all farm safety, health and wellbeing matters. They collaborated with farmers, farm families to comprehend the challenges faced by farmers on the ground in addressing farm safety, health and wellbeing, and through diverse media platforms as well to highlight the findings in the meetings with the other mentors. The project team also featured in local newspapers, along with completing briefings and trainings from Niall Heenan, Train the Trainer, which implemented farm safety, along with Mental Health Ireland, Finola Colligan, the Health and Safety Authority, Pat Griffin, and the IFA Countryside and Agri Kids, Emma Jordan, and Farm Relief Services, Jim Dockery. And the talks was with previous mentors as well, as James touched on, from the last Farmers Inspiring Farmers project, which was carried out back in 2013. We will later hear from the mentors, who will highlight their roles and responsibilities and learning throughout this project. In meeting with the mentors over 20 times and carrying out the relevant trainings and briefings, it added to their overall knowledge of farm safety, health and wellbeing. The trainings and briefings indicated the services available to their farm safety network on the ground. This bottom-up, farmer-led approach created opportunities for the mentors to become innovative in how they address farm safety, health and wellbeing. From our Stick to Safety farm safety sticker competition with Agri Kids, to our Mind, Body and Safety Matters leaflet with Mental Health Ireland. All of these innovative ideas added to the overall project objectives. Moving on then to looking at our methodology and how we actually carried out this research in the catchment areas, our Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project allowed participants to use their own words or vernacular to describe their own experiences and perceptions when tackling and improving the social norms around farm safety, health and wellbeing, as there is no better introduction to a population than the people themselves that work in the agriculture sector. So we undertook a mixed method approach by gathering and analysing both quantitative and qualitative data to gain a better insight into the current practices, concerns, needs and challenges farmers, farm families faced when addressing farm safety, health and wellbeing. So the qualitative data included informal consultation processes such as attending agriculture shows and events, discussion groups, focus groups, talks and workshops, and engaging with farm communities on the ground in the catchment areas as a group or one-to-one. The qualitative data included desk-based research and surveys. The project team carried out the pre-evaluation and attitudinal survey for farmers, farm families, partners and service providers. This data collected acted as the baseline for this project. I'll discuss the most noteworthy findings from our surveys shortly, and the analysis of these surveys can be found on our website. So looking at Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project's achievements, this project has met all its milestones that it set out to do, along with additional objectives. So these achievements and milestones are outlined throughout infographics. So each of you all have a copy of the infographics in your packs. They highlight the overall key statistics and figures of the project since the beginning of its lifetime. These facts and figures were sourced from the mentors' weekly templates, which they began last March to September. The templates asked mentors how many farm families they engaged with, where they engaged with them, what subjects they talked about, along with how many farms they visited. And from this we see that the project team engaged with 1,788 farm families, attended 8 agricultural shows and events, engaged with over 200 people at the National Ploughing Championships where we were with Moocher and Achira, attended and spoke at 7 discussion groups and presentations, 3 events organised in the catchment areas, 1 in each of the regions, and spoke at 7 discussion groups and presentations. We also carried out 330 surveys, 960 phone calls or WhatsApps, over 60 subjects talked about when engaging with farmers and farm families, and visited 330 farms, along with over 280 entries in our Stick to Safety Farm Safety Sticker Competition with advocates. So this indicates the hard work, determination and dedication from the project team in tackling and improving the social norms around farm safety, health and well-being. So the mentors engage with the 1,788 farm families in co-ops, marts, WhatsApp, a field, shop, events, launch, funeral, vets, farmyard, farm, discussion groups, shows, house, GEA pitch, the pub, ploughing, conference and phone. When engaging with farmers, farm families, partners and service providers in these various venues, the subjects they spoke about varied, and we can see just a few of them which I mentioned: the fatalities and injuries, near misses, mental health and well-being, work-life balance, social activities, sport, events, access to information, access to funding, and assistance with the Code of Practice Risk Assessment document, along with the WhatsApp groups. These are just a few examples of the 60 plus subjects that the mentors spoke about with farmers, farm families. Looking at our project dissemination and outreach, we have featured in 12 articles in local and national newspapers, along with 8 radio interviews from radio stations in the catchment areas and other regions. We also feature on the FarmWell project, which is project website, which is the Horizon 2020 European thematic network that aims at improving the mental, physical and social well-being of farmers. This Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project was also nominated for the Rural Inspiration Awards 2022, which focused on the future's youth. The Stick to Safety Farm Safety Sticker Competition was nominated for this award under the Social, Inclusive and Innovative Futures thematic category. Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project team have received great engagement on the ground from carrying out this Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project. And from looking at our social media platforms, which you will know, Minister Hayden, we have reached 89,864 on our Facebook page, 472 likes, 221 followers on Twitter, 19,406 profile visits, 213 mentions, 57,643 impressions, 1,585 website users, 2,837 views, along with 128 followers on Instagram and 116 participating in our WhatsApp chats. Looking at our project dissemination outreach, we now move on to our learnings and outcomes from engaging with farmers in the catchment areas and beyond the areas. So this project has gained a huge amount of insights into the current challenges and opportunities farmers and farm families face when tackling and improving the social norms around farm safety, health and well-being. So the next few slides will highlight some of the most noteworthy responses from the pre-evaluation longitudinal survey from farmers, farm families. So these surveys took place in March to May last year. Just to give you a background of the participants involved, there was 56 responses from Cork, 38 were from Wexford and 58 were from Tipperary. The age bracket of the survey participants included 5 from the age of 18 to 24, 22 from the age of 25 to 39, 75 from the age of 40 to 60, and 50 from the age of 60, from the 60 plus bracket. Looking at their enterprises then, we see 55 were from dry stock, 13 were from sucklers, 49 were from dairy, 24 were from tillage, 3 were from sheep, 2 were from equine, 2 were from forestry, and 2 were from horses and horse breeding. So one question included in the survey asked participants, on an average, how many hours of the week do they work on the farm? 30% said 30 to 40 hours, 11% said 41 to 50 hours, 1% said 365 days a year, 23% said 51 to 60 hours, 31% said 60 plus hours, and 4% said less than 30 hours a week. We also asked them then on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is farm safety, health and wellbeing on their farm? 7 out of 10 responded that farm safety, health and wellbeing was important on the farm. Another question then we asked, how important is their health and wellbeing in carrying out jobs on the farm? 7 out of 10 responded, rated that their health and wellbeing is important in carrying out jobs on the farm. Another question asked, how often do you monitor your mental health? 6% said monthly, 14% said weekly, 57% said never, 8% said quarterly, 15% said annually. We also asked participants if they take risks that they would not allow anyone else to take on the farm. 48% responded yes and 52% responded no. We then asked how many injuries near hits have occurred in the last 3 years in their farm. 46% had an injury or near hit and 52% had none. Another question asked participants, how often do you monitor your physical health and book a checkup with the doctor? 4% said monthly, 1% said weekly, 19% said never, 9% said quarterly, 67% said annually. We also then moved on to asking them, did they actively engage and implement the Code of Practice Risk Assessment document? 52% responded yes and 45% responded no. Then looking, I suppose, moving on to the post-evaluation attitudinal survey from farmers, farm families, which was carried out then in August and September last year. We did see a change in attitudes and behaviours towards farm safety, health and wellbeing, as a number of the questions that was asked from the first survey was asked again toward the second survey. So just to give you a profile of the participants involved in the post-evaluation attitudinal survey from farmers, farm families. The participants involved in the survey also participated in the previous survey. There was 36 from Cork, 29 from Tipperary, 33 from Wexford. The age bracket shows 1 under 18, 3 in the 18 to 24 age bracket, 16 in the 25 to 39 age bracket, 52 in the 40 to 60 age bracket, and 26 in the 60 plus bracket. The farm enterprises highlight a mixture between dairy, tillage, dry stock, equine, horses, forestry, sucklers and sheep. One of the questions asked, since becoming involved in the project, how often do you now take time off from the farm? 59.4% responded regularly, 36.5% responded rarely, and 4.2% said never. Compared to the first survey, where 54% responded they regularly take time off from the farm, 40% said they rarely take time off, and 6% said they never take time off from the farm. So we do see a change in statistics, as those that never took a break have reduced to 4.2 rather than 6. Another question included in the survey asked participants, was our Farmers4Safety initiative beneficial in raising awareness of health and safety and well-being? 94.8% responded yes, and 5.2% responded no. This indicates the need and value of our Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project. One of the farm mentors highlighted their experiences from effectively engaging with farming communities on the ground by saying, my experience of being a farm mentor on the Farmers4Safety project was most definitely immensely enlightening and most importantly, results driven. However, an aspect of the project that was incredibly invaluable was the wonderful flexibility of the project to address farm safety, health and wellbeing needs that arose in the farming communities during my work. This comment highlights the significance of our peer-to-peer mentor approach when addressing farm safety, health and wellbeing, and the importance of tailoring to the needs of the farming communities in the catchment areas. Also, a participant who actually took part in the surveys indicated that it made us be more aware of being extra safety conscious around the farm. So looking on then, we asked another question to participants, since becoming involved in this project, do they now seek help when completing high-risk jobs? 88.2% responded yes and 11.8% responded no. We do see a change in attitudes and behaviours compared to the previous survey, where 87% seeked help when completing high-risk jobs and 13% did not. This highlights a reduction from 13 to 11.8%. Another question included in the survey asked participants if they would like to see more free mobile health checkups such as blood testing, eye test, heart monitoring at their local marts or co-ops. 89.5% responded yes and 10.5% responded no. This highlights the need for free mobile health checks available to farmers and farm families, as they will become more inclined to keep on top of their overall health and well-being when the service is free and accessible to them. The next question included in the survey asked participants, since becoming involved in this project, would you now seek to take risks that you would not allow anyone else to take on the farm? 35.8% responded yes and 64.2% responded no. Looking back on the responses from our previous survey, 48% said they do take risks that they would not allow anyone else to take on the farm, and 52% said they do not. This indicates a change in attitudes and behaviours, as 64.2% do not take risks compared to 52% in the previous survey. We also asked then participants in the survey how would they feel if something like an annual or mandatory safety solutions certificate was introduced in agriculture to help reduce the number of farm fatalities or injuries on farms. So this would be a mixture of theory and practical measures. For example, you'd have pictures and videos of dangers and risks on the farms, their dangers and consequences, and then moving on to identifying and examining the dangers on the farm and learning solutions to overcome these risks. The course would be farmer-led and create a bottom-up approach. 66.3% responded yes and 33.7% responded no. From engaging with the Health and Safety Authority on this finding, it has become evident the need for more practical in-person talks and trainings that would add to the basic payment scheme. This needs to be researched in depth as the current mechanisms need to be amended to a more practical solution. Another question asked participants if they think there is sufficient knowledge awareness among farmers, farm families of the problems relating to mental health in the agricultural sector. 5.4% responded very sufficient, 20.4% responded sufficient, 46.2% responded insufficient, 16.1% responded neither sufficient nor insufficient, 11.8% responded very insufficient, apologies. We also asked our participants would they partake in any upskilling or health and wellbeing awareness day and night if it was available to them. 78% said yes and 22% said no. This indicates a need for more upskilling in relation to mental health and wellbeing awareness sessions for farmers, farm families to equip them with the relevant skills, knowledge, help identify, assist and overcome any issues that they may face, along with becoming more conscious of the mental health problems that can coincide with the agriculture sector. It is vital that upskilling is available to farmers, farm families in order for them to raise awareness of the issues that they may encounter and ways of prevention. Implementing a proactive approach will achieve long-term goals. Another question asked if they would engage or pay into a government-led scheme that would provide holiday pay and sick pay. 51.6% responded yes and 48.4% responded no. This identifies a need within the agriculture sector, as over half of the participants that took part in the survey highlighted that they would engage or pay into a government-led scheme. In other sectors or industries in Ireland, workers are entitled to sick and annual leave. It is important farmers and farm families have the equal supports and services available to them similar to other sectors or industries. So looking at the next two slides, they will highlight the most noteworthy responses from partners who completed the surveys. So just to give you an overall profile of the people involved in this survey, 19 were from Wexford, 24 were from Tipperary and 9 were from Cork. The age bracket of the respondents included 7 from the age 25 to 39 age bracket, 25 from the 40 to 60 age bracket and 20 from the 60 plus bracket. The first question asked participants, do they work on the farm? 59% responded yes and 41% responded no. The next question commented and asked if something happens on the farm, such as the death of an animal or machinery breaking down, it can lead to pressures and anxieties in the household. 14 strongly agreed, 49 agreed, 17% neither agreed nor disagreed and 20% disagreed. This indicates the effects the farm can have upon a household and how it can influence the farmer and the farm family. Another question asked, does their partner find it difficult to trust people to do the farming for them when they are taking time off? 51% responded yes and 49% responded no. This finding indicates the challenges that farmers and farm families face when taking time off from the farm, with finding the adequate help, trusting a person to complete the job, along with being able to afford to take the time off. Another question asked, does your partner knowingly take risks on the farm? 35% responded yes and 65% responded no. Another question asked if they find it difficult to spend time with their partner when he or she is constantly working and thinking of the farm. 55% responded yes and 45% responded no. And this was one finding really that stood out to me personally as an indication of the challenges farmers and farm families faced when trying to spend quality time with their partner or farm family when they're constantly working and thinking of the farm. It is a huge concern, and this as it may impact generational renewal, succession, along with the impact on the farm family itself, if farmers and farm families cannot take a step back from the farm and spend quality time for themselves or with their partner or for their farm family. Another question also asked, how often does your partner monitor his or her physical health and book a checkup with the doctor? 0% responded weekly, 8% responded monthly, 60% responded annually, 10% responded quarterly, and 22% responded never. So by introducing the free mobile health checkups, it may influence the 22% that never get a checkup when it is free and available to them in their local co-ops or marts. In the survey, we also asked, how often does your partner monitor his or her mental health? 8% responded weekly, 4% responded monthly, 12% responded annually, 8% responded quarterly, and 68% responded never. So the next responses just focus on the response from service providers. So looking at your vets, your AI technicians, your scanners, your farm concrete services, machinery contractors, electricians, everything you name it, the mentor's done it. So giving you an overall profile of the participants who engaged with this survey, there was 11 from Wexford, 7 were from Cork and 10 were from Tipperary. One of the questions asked, do you think farmers, farm families plan for safety, health and well-being on their farm on a regular basis? 33% responded yes and 67% responded no. Another question asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is farm safety, health and well-being on farms for farmers and farm families? The responses answered 6 out of 10. We also asked if they and the farmer consider farm safety, health and wellbeing when on the farm. 87% responded yes and 13% responded no. Another question asked if farmers and farm families knowingly take risks with animals and machinery. 79% responded yes and 21% responded no. We also asked do they feel if there is pressure from the farmer or farm family to carry out the tasks set out for them to do when on the farm. 58% responded yes and 42% responded no. Another question asked how often do you think farmers, farm families monitor their mental health? 0% responded weekly, 4% responded monthly, 13% responded quarterly, 33% responded annually, and 50% responded never. We also moved on and asked service providers if they think farmers and farm families actively engage and implement the Code of Practice Risk Assessment document. 25% responded yes, 75% responded no. This response from the service providers, along with the responses from farmers and farm families, highlight that the current mechanisms in relation to farm safety, health and wellbeing need to be improved on, as there is no one size fits all. Another question asked how often do you think farmers, farm families monitor their overall physical health and book a check-up with the doctor? 0% said weekly, 4% said monthly, 0% said quarterly, 25% said annually, and 71% said never. From the responses discussed, we do see a change in culture in terms of safer working practices, the importance of looking after physical and mental health, and the value of our peer-to-peer mentor approach in addressing farm safety, health and wellbeing. We also see the impact of empowering farmers and farm families to take responsibility and learn from each other as they have the skills and knowledge themselves to address farm safety, health and wellbeing. The next slide is just to highlight some of the comments from farmers and farm families who participated in the project. So one participant highlighted that if you consult with farmers and point out and discuss the dangers, I know that I would respond positively. Many accidents are caused by complacency, and an outsider will see the dangers that we overlook. So looking at that fresh pair of eyes coming into the farm that Seamus touched on, you might be frustrated, Seamus, but it just shows you when you have that fresh pair of eyes come on the farm, they see something that I might not on my farm. One respondent then also highlighted that they found the study to be very good and made us think outside the box. Mary is an excellent farm safety mentor and is on the ball at all times, very encouraging and helpful, as always. Another one highlighted to never be afraid to ask for help. It is important to know your limitations. Another respondent indicated that the project was very beneficial and gets the mind thinking. More comments highlight the value of our peer-to-peer mentor approach, as one participant highlighted that it made us think we are doing our best to have a safe and happy farm. Every day is a special day. Always think safety and health. Another respondent recommended that we all need more online health and safety courses, along with highlighting the value on ads in the evening would create greater awareness as well in relation to farm safety and wellbeing, maybe after the news or the weather, you don't know. One participant also commented that farming is stressful, work never runs out, scale is becoming more important to make it viable. Less young people becoming involved. As a result, the industry will remain a high risk in terms of both mental and physical health. Looking at the experience from the 6 part-time farm mentors who determined the overall success of this project, we would not be here today, along with driving the project on the ground. So one mentor highlighted how most farmers agree there is a problem regarding health and safety in the industry, but many would not agree that it applies to their own farm. Many farmers do not find this subject interesting enough to engage with. Unfortunately, many farmers are suspicious of anything that might require more paperwork, inspections and regulations. Many farmers are not aware of issues surrounding mental health and feel uncomfortable talking about it. Unfortunately, most farmers don't really recognise mental health issues until it reaches a crisis point. Another mentor highlighted that they absolutely love this role from the very start, and I see the value of going out to the farms and speaking to them one-to-one. They are much more comfortable in their own yards, and also most of them don't have the time to attend events. I think they are under so much pressure and always caught for time. By bringing the information to them, such as the Code of Practice Risk Assessment document, we made it easier for them to access information. Another mentor also thanked Irish Rural Link for the opportunity to work on this project. It has personally opened their eyes to complete the need for this type of project going forward. Farmers4Safety will help farmers become more aware of farm safety, including mental health and wellbeing, and it will save lives. Looking at some of our case studies from participants involved in this Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project, I would just like to discuss just some case studies identified by the 6 part-time farm mentors and myself when engaging with the Farm Safety Network on the ground and attending 8 agriculture shows and events. There's plenty we've learned. So the mentors will elaborate on the points later, but just one case study that I will focus on. There was a family with young children who participated in this survey who really struggled to juggle family time and farm work. They had not taken a meaningful family holiday in several years. After realising this, because of engaging with the project, they made a big effort to have a proper family holiday this year and succeeded. But they still had to take, there was one, we'll say the mother went off with the kids and spent the holiday, but when they came home, the father took out with the kids again. So they did take the holiday, but it was the circumstances that different, so they didn't actually take this together. Another case study then, at one of our events in the catchment areas, we had a farm safety inspector demonstration, and the participants were divided into 4 groups. Each had 4 different themes to focus on, whether it was animal handling, tractors, machinery. While walking around through the different groups, many farmers and farm families were learning from each other the diverse ways they could be safer on the farm. Many learned from the farm safety demonstration, and one in particular was going to actually copy what the farmer had done in relation to making his animal handling section safer for him and his family with dosing stock. The farmer who had the demonstration on his farm also became more knowledgeable of the grant available to him for his dairy parlour, as the system he had in place was a risk. The Health and Safety Authority inspector disseminated the information to the farmer on how he could avail of financial supports from the provider in order to alter the parlour to a safer working manner. Another case study then, just going back to the mentors, there's 2 mentors since completing their roles within this Farm Safety Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project, and actually expressed interest from completing their role as mentor in relation to mental health. So there's one mentor looking at mental health training, along with another mentor then who's actually looking at the health and safety side of things. So it's great to see that this project doesn't just end here today, that we have facts and figures and stats, statistics to back up what we've done within the past few months, and the mentors as well had the knowledge and experience, but it was just to kind of give them a shoe at one stage, but they still got there. Looking, I suppose, at the actions we had to carry forward, our peer-to-peer mentor approach needs to be carried forward, as it has proven to be a success over the past year with this Farm Safety Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project, and back in 2013 when Farmers Inspiring Farmers was rolled out. It can be seen the most cost-effective method going forward in addressing issues such as farm safety, health and wellbeing, as it successfully engages and communicates with the farming communities, by also identifying the limitations and opportunities that exist within the agriculture sector. By the Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project team engaging with farming communities in the catchment areas, it has highlighted the importance of carrying out events in person on a farm rather than in person in a farm itself, in order to have any relevance to the farm or farm family, as this is where the incidents or accidents can occur. By adopting a peer-to-peer mentor approach, along with having events and talks, trainings on a farm rather than a classroom approach, it will create opportunities for knowledge transfer between farmers, farm families, build gaps between research and practice, while allowing for innovation to take place among the farming sector and industry. So just to summarise all of my findings and the project's findings, the lessons learned from our Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project, which were highlighted throughout this project, indicates the needs and concerns among farmers, farm families in the catchment areas. Their perspectives in relation to tackling and improving social norms around farm safety, health and wellbeing. The recommendations and summaries and findings highlight the need to alter the Code of Practice Risk Assessment document to a more practical, utilised document that farmers, farm families would use on a regular basis, rather than completing the document prior to inspections. Throughout our pre-evaluation attitudinal survey for farmers, farm families, it highlights that 52% actually engage with the document, however 45% do not. Also within the attitudinal survey response from service providers, it indicates that 75% do not actively engage with the document and 25% do. So an alternative approach needs to be taken to make this document a living and working one. The project team, with the assistance of the Health and Safety Authority, discussed this finding and identified the inclusion of a safety certificate or solutions, which would be similar to the Safe Pass in the construction industry. The post-evaluation and attitudinal survey responses highlight that 66% agreed with this approach and 33.7% did not. This highlights the need for a more practical, on-the-ground method to be introduced in the agriculture sector to help reduce the number of fatalities and injuries on our farms. There also needs to be more constant, long-term, bottom-up collaborative approaches in order to tailor to the needs and concerns of the farming communities, as needs change over time, and it is vital that farmers and farm families have the adequate supports and services available if and when needed. Gaps in service provision as well. There's also a gap in service provision in relation to a network or organisation for a senior farmer, farmers who are retired and no longer classify themselves as a farmer, and farm safety material for children over the age of 12 and those in their senior years. Time management on the farm and the impact it has upon the mental health and well-being of the farmer, their farm family and their farm. From our research findings, it has become evident that many farm families are concerned about the safety, health and well-being of their loved one who carries out jobs on the farm. Therefore, it is important to have adequate supports available to farmers' farm families. From this finding, we created, designed and launched a leaflet with Mental Health Ireland to highlight the supports and services available to the farming communities if and when farmers' farm families are in a crisis, along with creating a quality of life index. The purpose of this quality of life index is to provide farmers and farm families with an opportunity to reflect on aspects of their life, both physical, mental and social. It is a self-assessment on how farmers and farm families are spending their time and the quality of time they take for them, for their close family members and friends. There is also a lack of ETAC Level 6 farm safety courses, with the inclusion of health and wellbeing available to the farming communities besides the TAMS safety course for farmers, farm families, which must be completed to avail of the grant. Throughout this project, it was particularly difficult to locate a ETAC Level 6 farm safety course that went in line with the project timeline. This resulted in 6 part-time farm mentors and myself engaging with the Train the Trainer course focused on farm safety, along with health and safety briefings from the Health and Safety Authority and mental health and wellbeing talks from Mental Health Ireland. There needs to be more flexible ETAC Level 6 farm safety courses with the inclusion of health and wellbeing available to farming communities that tailor to their needs and concerns. There is also concerns around young tractor drivers with inadequate training to avail of. There is a need to have more compulsory training for younger people to ensure they are aware of how to use and drive and maintain the machinery, vehicle or tractor in a safer manner, or a recommendation to raise the age bracket for them to be allowed to drive the machinery, vehicle or tractor. By incorporating driving courses within schools and colleges, it would equip students with the relevant skills and knowledge of the machinery and vehicle and tractors, while also having the training available to farmers over the age of 16 and contractors if they would like their employees to avail of the training. In Ireland, younger people over the age of 16 can obtain a tractor licence by just completing a theory test and do not need to undergo any lessons for driving a 120 horsepower tractor, along with having 1,500 gallons of slurry tank behind the tractor. This is a concern for the well-being of the young tractor driver themselves, their family and the farmer family contractor who they are carrying out the work for. There needs to be more caution in relation to ensuring the safety of those who carried out work on the farms, as from the year of 2011 to 2020, there have been 113 fatalities related to machinery, vehicles and tractors. Another finding highlights how spouses are concerned about the safety, health and well-being of their loved one while working on the farm. There are also concerns raised from partners around spending quality of time with their loved ones' farm families. This has been highlighted throughout our attitudinal survey response from partners, as 55% of the survey responses indicated that they do find it difficult to spend time with their partner, and he or she is constantly working and thinking of the farm. This is a concern for the farmer themselves with their farm family. There needs to be support or relief for farmers, farm families to spend the adequate time and quality of their time with their loved one. Health and safety measures as well at the agriculture shows and events. There is need to increase the level of health and safety measures within agriculture shows and events to correspond and relate to the health and safety guidelines issued by the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine and Health and Safety Authority. From attending 8 agriculture shows and events, there has been concerns in relation to the safety measures within the events, such as the need for a helmet when driving a quad, the number of people on a quad, and younger age cohorts below the age of 16 driving machinery, vehicles, tractors. There is also interest from this project from other areas outside the catchment area about our peer-to-peer mentor approach. Another finding highlights that there are limited courses for technology and IT skills available for farmers and farm families. There is a need for training and courses available to farmers, farm families to improve and familiarise themselves with the benefits to online technology and how to use the platforms correctly. In the agriculture industry, the majority of the services grant opportunities have turned to online, such as AgFood, HerdWatch, MarkLive, Done Deal, emailing important reminders or documents rather than postage. This indicates a shift in culture, as not many farmers, farm families are aware how to use a computer and find it difficult to keep up with the changes. It is vital to provide adequate tailored training services to farmers, farm families who want to upskill on technology and IT. Mental health issues and concerns, it was also raised from farmers and farm families when inspection and TB tests are coming up. Collaboration, capacity building and effective engagement with the farming communities, existing organisations, farming bodies is essential in order to create a better governance by exchanging knowledge with each organisation, farm body, to ensure nothing is reinvented in relation to farm safety, health and wellbeing. This collaboration and capacity building between diverse farming communities and farming bodies and organisations would allow all bodies, organisations, communities to learn from each other, share their findings. It would also help identify gaps in service provision within the agriculture sector when addressing farm safety, health and wellbeing, along with identifying the current mechanisms and how they are working or effective in terms of dealing with the issues in the sector, such as farm fatalities and injuries. By adopting meaningful collaboration within the agriculture sector between farmers, farm families, farming bodies and organisations, it will help build sustainable developments. To conclude, it is evident that Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project have gone beyond its targets set out for it to do in its project brief. The The project team have established and launched the project, implemented the work plan, delivered an integrated communications plan, and monitored and evaluated the project. By adopting a peer-to-peer mentor approach, it has proven to be a success with this Farm Safety, Health and Wellbeing EIP Agri project, as it has created a co-learning environment, transfer of knowledge, communicated and engaged with farmers and farm families by providing information and signposting them to the relevant supports and services that farmers and farm families required. This peer-to-peer mentor approach is the most cost-effective method going forward in tackling and improving the social norms around farm safety, health and wellbeing, as farmers are more inclined to speak to a peer rather than a person in authority or hierarchical position. This highlights the value and impact of peer-to-peer mentor approaches and the influence and mobilisation it has upon innovation. There are many advantages from peer-to-peer mentor approaches within the agriculture sector, as farmers speak the same language, literally and culturally are faced with similar problems and constraints, and by adopting a farmer-led approach, they will become innovative in how they address these problems, such as farm safety, health and wellbeing. Farmers4Safety Managing Risk Together EIP Agri project have outlined today many insights into the opportunities and limitations that farm families encounter when tackling and improving the social norms around farm safety, health and wellbeing. I hope you all have come across some findings, learnings from this presentation for you, your farm family, farming body and organisation. I would like to just thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, I will be taking them after our peer-to-peer mentor panel. I would also like to thank the Minister, Martin Hayden, and his Secretary, Barry Cassidy, for your support throughout my role as Project Manager. I know there was times I'd say you were kind of going, geez, does she want this now? But it was great, and I really do appreciate it. I also want to thank the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine for actually acknowledging the need for these EIP Agri projects going forward. To Irish Rural Link, to the project partners, to the Duncannon Blue Flag Farming Community Scheme, the Health and Safety Authority, the Bride Project and the New Futures Farming Group. I really do appreciate all your help, support and guidance that I had throughout my role. And also I spoke to the Talbot team here as well for a beautiful conference layout today, and I really do appreciate their help and support as well. So thank you all, and I hope you found it very beneficial.
Angela, the Minister has to go, and James will see you. Thank you very much for being here this morning. I think Neil finished by saying, I hope you found something of interest or something that surprised you in those findings. And I can tell you, I'm sure you did, because one of the things that I found, it is true, many farmers, and I know many farmers, who really don't take holidays or don't see the need to take a break. And it's amazing in a profession that needs, where 2 out of 5 injuries or 2 out of 5 accidents are fatalities are in the farming sector. You would have to say a lot of change needs to happen in the farmyard and in the area. So it's been amazing to hear those statistics, and I think we are going to dwell on these for quite a while. And I know the farm safety organisations, the health and safety organisations as well, and then others will look at these findings with great interest, and I hope farmer organisations will do so again. I'd like to particularly, as I mentioned already, Pat Griffin, who has travelled this road a long time with us in health and safety, and I really, Health and Safety Authority, I just want to mention that dedication, because we really want to, and this is the reason we're in this project, we want to bring it to an even wider audience, because you can't continue with those kind of statistics and think somehow nothing will happen, we will somehow ease the fatalities. You can't ignore them, they're there, and I think we have to find ways of bringing solutions. So I'm now going to call the mentors of the Farm Safety Programme to the stage. So we're going to have a small discussion. Mary, Paddy, Ned, Tommy and John. So if you would, I don't know if I can take this microphone with me, because we're asking some questions. One of the things when you're taking the stage, like the reason we talked about mentors is the more, first of all, a mentor, what is the qualification of each of these mentors? The farmers, to involving farm families, they know what it's like. And that statistic which you talked about you know, when an animal dies on the farm, or when something happens that it doesn't affect the health, you know, or the worry or the anxiety of a farm, I can guarantee you it does, and it was very interesting to see that. So I'm just going to step out a little bit in front, and I'm going to talk. I'll start, in order to give mentors a chance to settle there, I'm just going to talk to Niamh, and I'll ask you the first question. You've given a huge presentation of the statistics, and it's a great credit to you that so many statistics were gathered. But could you say in a couple of sentences the single advantage of this project as you see it now, given what you thought maybe when you came in?
Well, to be honest with you, Seamus, like the main advantage to our farm safety, health and wellbeing EIP Agri project was these guys here right beside me. They were my rocks the whole time throughout it. Anything I asked, I got. Whether it was daft, what I asked, I still got it. They really, only for them on the ground, the mentors, there would have not have been these findings that I discussed in my presentation. The surveys, they were on the ground, they had the network on the ground, they expanded that through the attending events, the local newspapers, your radio interviews. So we did see that it expanded the network on the ground. But the value of this, and I will keep going back to it, the peer-to-peer mentor approach is the only way really going forward I can see in addressing farm safety, health and wellbeing, as mentors will tell you themselves their experiences, and like they really did bring everything to the fore for this project, and I can't thank you all enough for your help and support and guidance, and for always being there, and anything I wanted I got, so thank you all.
So just to, before we get into some questions, maybe we just ask the mentors quickly to say who they are and what their background is when we could start.
Hello, my name is John Murphy. I'm a small dairy farmer outside Watergrass Hill in Cork, and I'm also a small agricultural contractor, and I also do a little bit of social farming on my farm, and my wife runs a farm-based preschool as well from our farm.
Okay, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Oakley from North Prairie, and I have a background all my life in farming and dairy farming, and I'm also a business connector and have my own innovation and business network.
Okay.
My name is Ned Carney. I'm originally from Cork. I was a dairy farmer there, but now I'm based in Waterford, New Garvan, doing breeding, horse breeding. So that's my background.
Thanks.
Thomas Tierney, tillage farmer and South Tipperary mentor. I've off-farm job as well, I'm not full-time farming, I'm plumbing off-farm as well and tillage, so.
Like many.
Hello there, I'm Paddy O'Brien, down from Gallywesson. Farmers again, near Duncan. Duncan is a blue flag, no, he's on there. But I'm a farmer. I done some work in construction over a few years, but I'm back to farming and farming full time. And when the construction went dry and before just the start of the Celtic tire, then of the Celtic tire, I increased my farming. I got more livestock, and that's just me. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. John, I'm just going to start with you a little bit. You know, you have a wide variety. In fact, we launched the project on your farm. It seems a long time ago. In your words, looking at this project, having come through it, what was your expectations of it? What were you thinking then, and where are you now in terms of, when you think of Niamh's findings? What's your reaction?
My reaction was I thought I knew a lot about health and safety. I had misconceptions about mental health, and through working with this project, I realised that there's an awful lot of knowledge within, let's say, the Health and Safety Authority that doesn't particularly trickle down to farmers. And farmers have an awful lot of misconceptions on the other side. Like one example would be farmers' attitudes to slurry monitors. Everyone thinks if they've got a slurry monitor, they're safe as houses, as I did, until we spoke to the Health and Safety Authority, and it turns out that they're not in favour of them at all, for very genuine reasons. So, yeah, that would be one example.
That's interesting. And Mary, just give me an idea. I don't know how we managed to get you into this whole space, and I'm sure you wondered yourself how you let yourself in, but just give us all an idea. What did you do during the last year in this project? Or what exactly did it mean from a day to day or week to week?
Well, when I heard of this role, I totally jumped at it because I'm a relationship builder. I love building relationships one person at a time, and going out to the farms and building relationships with the farmers, and the surveys were a great way into the farms, and actually the cooperation from the farmers, not one of them refused. We met no resistance, and that told a lot about farmers to start off. So I see it as a huge chance to get to know farmers more deeply and bring them together, because that's what they need. So between the shows, the events and everything, and also it highlighted the need at the events for this to be launched in other counties. We had other farmers asking, I'm really interested in this. So that's what I saw as a mentor, and of course the WhatsApp group was our way. That was our tool we used to give them information. They may not have replied to the messages, but we knew they all saw them. We could see how many.
And Mary, did you find, you said there was no, did you find that other finding in a way that there is a loneliness about farming?
There is an isolation, and that alone leads to farm accidents. You're working on your own, and you're tired, and you're exhausted, no one to talk to. And I say loneliness is actually worse than smoking. It has a worse effect on your health than smoking. So, also going out to the farms, peer-to-peer, you see the families, you get a good idea, of their circumstances when you call out to them. Yeah. And we were welcomed.
Yeah, and that's really, and coming to you, Ned, apart from the fact that you moved to Waterford, and I don't know what it's like when Waterford and Cork are playing.
All the way.
So for at least half an hour or a couple of hours every whatever Sunday, you just put the red flag in the middle of Waterford, and that's fine. Nobody. Do you not worry about farm safety during that time now?
No, not at all. No. In fairness, people in the garden are sound, so I have no complaints about them. But Cork is in my blood, so that will never change.
That's good Cork man speaking there. Coming back to the farm safety and coming back to the peer-to-peer, like when you heard about this peer-to-peer, maybe you've seen it before in other areas. What did you think of it, and what do you think of it now?
At the beginning, I had no idea what it could involve, really, and so through all the Zoom calls we had with various sectors, people in the whole health and safety business, that we got to know more and more about the whole farm safety. And even as John said there, our perception going into it is now completely different at the other side, that we've learned so much about it. The peer-to-peer is you can do courses, you can organise training, and some of them are very important, like as Niamh highlighted there about the 16-year-olds and driving tractors. I think the quad bike is becoming, by law next November, that you have to have training in order to drive a quad bike. So certain things like that need to be done course-wise on that road. But it's all about awareness and well-being, and this is where peer-to-peer really comes to the fore, because it's been mentioned already, and you even said it yourself there, that you weren't aware of the risks on your farm, and it took someone coming into your farm a friendly face, not an authoritative face, a friendly face, coming in and speaking to you and highlighting it. Not even highlighting it, but just, making you aware that you didn't, when that person left you, you walked around the corner and you saw something, right, that's not right, I need to do something about this. Because, you're not the only one on your farmyard. You have your kids, you have your family, you have contractors coming out. They are all, at risk because of your farm. So it's very, very important. But more, again, I really got to learn the knowledge about the whole well-being, the mental health in associated with farming. There being so much left behind. I mean, a very simple example, if you go back 20, 30 years ago, you had the pub, you had the church, you went to Mass every Sunday. Those things, you went to the creamery, you went to the mart. That doesn't happen anymore. It's becoming less and less. So farmers are becoming more and more isolated. So again, peer-to-peer communication with other farmers, with other people, is becoming so important in the whole thing. So I can't emphasize it enough. And again, I just want to make one point. At the launch, Seamus yourself mentioned that the work that we were doing, that we were going to be doing, we would never see the fruits of our labour, and we don't. But you never know, a word that was said or a comment that was made could save a life down the road, and it hopefully has already. We won't know, we'll never know the answer, but all day long prevention is better than cure.
That is a really, really important point. That's, absolutely. Because people don't realise that split second where somebody actually, notices that the lift of the tractor is up in the air, or the gate is the wrong way round, or just that 5 minutes to just stop and just take a deep breath, you could have saved a life. You're absolutely right. That is so important. Absolutely. Tommy, you actually represent in many ways a lot of farmers. Like, they're busy, they're part-timing. You have a job and you're doing the farming. Maybe you're doing it in the evening. I do that myself. Is that a major challenge also in trying to keep safety up there up front, or is it just another challenge that farmers have to try and live with?
It wouldn't be as much of a challenge for me because I'm a tillage farmer, so there's a lot of times a year where, we're not busy. But for someone who has stock, who's doing both jobs the same day, they're doing longer hours, and that's when they're rushed and they're busy. And you'd even see it when you were asking for the surveys, or looking for the surveys back, or you can hear it in their voice, they're under pressure, they're busy, and right, I won't ask him for it today. It is the problem. The biggest problem of talking to anyone was just they're too busy. Whether they have a second job and they're doing that in the day and feeding cat in the evening, just people being busy, and that's.
Was there any kind of, in talking to the farmers, in looking at the surveys even, when you and all of you can nearly answer this question, was there anything that surprised you in terms of the basic mistakes people make, or was it just expected? Was there anything that stood out?
Well, the one I always thought was animals, machinery, but the one thing that falling from heights I didn't.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said their near misses was that, and that was mentioned earlier, and I'd never thought of that kind of affair. But it still all comes down to under pressure, and being busy is kind of taking shortcuts.
Yeah.
And like I saw, in the early noughties when the Safe Pass came into the construction, we were all getting out about, Jesus, I know how to lift a box, and you don't need goggles and a grinder. Whereas, I saw the difference it made on building sites. And I've been able to bring that onto the farm, just from the building site. So things like that, awareness, the Safe Pass, I would think would make a big difference to farming.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely. I think the shortcut is another one. And John, you wanted to come in there and come back to Paddy.
Just to add, the one thing that shocked me was, even though I knew it statistically, but in reality, the age profile of farmers is quite shocking at this stage. I mean, what was it? Half of farmers are over 55 years of age. I'm 44. I'm nearly a young fella. It's in the farming industry, and the number of those farmers who are doing it all on their own. I live on the side of the River Bride on the valley, and there's 4 mighty fine farms on the other side, and there's no obvious successor to any of those 4 farms. And those guys are well into their 70s, and they're still working away. And unfortunately, it is those guys that statistically are the ones who they're the ones who show up in the fatality statistics the most. In the media there last week, was it the land mobility scheme that's Macra have? That's a fantastic.
Yeah.
If only we could get more of that, young people who do want to go farming, get them in touch with farmers who are coming to the end of their careers. I think that would help mental health and the fatality statistics in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely, John. That is a very good point. Paddy, from your perspective, talking again to farmers, it's almost the same question as Tommy, slight difference, except what surprised you? You know, did you see everything, or did you see something different when you started talking to farmers and going around and seeing their farms?
Well, I don't think it would surprise me really, because I think that an awful lot of people, let them be working on farm full time or off farm, or be older or younger. Younger people are coming into farming now. For me, it's for one reason, because it's easier money everywhere else. There's not enough money in farming for me. There's not, you're not getting paid for your produce. And that's what's putting everyone under so much pressure. That's what's putting everyone taking chances and doing things wrong. You know, taking shortcuts. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so much pressure. Why is pressure there? Because they haven't enough to support their family. Because they're not getting paid properly for their produce. That's what I think, and have thought. But as regards to mentoring and meeting people, I enjoyed it, 100%. I have made friends out of this project. Like, I had, things to me weren't happening enough. It's nice to have a party like this kind of thing, you know what I mean? But like, I was asking people since last May were interested in a computer course, for instance. And computer course, I had 10 people there that were interested in learning about computers, but they didn't start until last Monday week. You know, it should have started last November when things were slack, and things are starting to get busy now again. Do you understand it? But so what can you do? You know, it's just no fault to Neve. She's 100,000%. Go ahead, go. I do. Don't mean. But it's an awful lot of people that are lax. That's just my opinion.
And just by the way, if there's anyone here who wants to put up their hand and ask a question, yes, there's a lady, and I'll go down to you with the microphone. Where is the phone? Okay.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for such a great presentation, Niamh. It's great to be here. I'm Claire Tolman I'm the coordinator of the Farm Connect EIP Agri project. And could I just ask you, you mentioned there, Mary, about putting together the WhatsApp group and sending the messages out. Can I ask you a really practical question? Can I ask you what the content of the messages was and who was responsible for sending them out, and how frequently did you send them?
Well, before Christmas I sent them too regularly because I was experimenting, to see would you get any feedback. And after Christmas I've slacked off a bit because I know they're busy and everything. So I posted everything from videos of safety, that I picked from the HSA, everything. I researched it, but I also picked mental health videos, And also Neve put together helpline numbers, everything. Now you wouldn't get feedback from them, but what you would get is you can check WhatsApp to see who views them, and most of them view them. And that's a good sign, that they actually are still viewing them. And also I was really surprised to see how many farmers asked for the risk assessment documents. I've been delivering risk assessment documents, which was really positive, because they knew we had them. So I'd say in the WhatsApp group, if anyone wants a risk assessment document, I even posted out one to South Tipperary. So that was really good, because make it easy for them to get them. But yes, so I think it's a valuable tool to post, but I do think to engage with them, you need to bring them together. And they won't come together if you have a farm safety meeting, but if you have maybe health checks and have farm safety talks at those health checks, about the machinery and everything, and also the training, of course, I think has to be.
Okay. If other hands.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for asking that question. And there's another question down there, Brendan.
Oh, hi, Margaret Kirby with the Health and Safety Review publication. Just a question around time and your own personal time required in being a mentor. Could you quantify how much time you'd have to spend on it in a week or a month?
It depends on the time of year, but we were asked to spend 10 hours a week on the project. And
was Neve watching that?
No, she was too busy stalking the minister to be stalking the rest of us. But one actually I would like to mention is one fact about it was that us farm mentors were paid, and we were paid for our time. And I actually think that that's an unacknowledged but a very, very important factor in the success of the project, because if we were volunteering, we certainly wouldn't be putting as much effort and as much time into it, because everything would always go on the long finger. But when you're being paid and you're being expected to deliver, we do. I mean, like when we were at the Cork Summer Show, and Ned was negotiating with his son Sean about should they give the hay another turn at home. If Ned was volunteering, he probably wouldn't have come to the Cork Summer Show at all. We had a mentor meeting, and Tommy was participating from the camp of his combine harvester. So I think that's a very important factor as well, that if you expect people, us farm mentors, to give our time to the project, the only way to realistically see that time being given is financial reward. And so I think we could all agree on that, would we? Yeah.
Okay. Another question here.
Thanks very much. Alice Doyle, chairperson of IFA Farm Family. Just very curious to know about how you identified the farmers that you were going to visit and how receptive they were of a mentor coming on board. Just watching farmers in general, they tend to be very protective of their own environment, and whether they want outsiders coming in to give them advice, they might be willing to take it if you're in there, but how receptive are they of you coming in onto their farm?
Thanks, Alice. Nice to see you again.
Okay, overall very, very receptive. Now the farmers we targeted for this particular project were people who were all involved in other EIP projects. For example, the Bride project, the Cannon project, and the guys in Tipperary?
Futures Farm.
Futures Farm, yeah, sorry. So we had a group of players, farmers that we could target straight away, and we also then targeted neighbours and other people around the place as well that we knew locally and all that, whatever. To expand it out would obviously be we only really tipped the tip of the iceberg as regards the amount of farmers we did meet. There's an awful more to be addressed and met out there, but it is possible, it is doable.
If I was saying on that, I had a Thomas meeting at home, and I just threw it out there at home. There was 30 or 40 people at the meeting, and There were done in Duncannon, Blue Flag Beach, you know, they were all over the county. And I was very, when I opposed any of them people, I was very, because I was a farmer myself, I suppose, I was very well welcome to go to their places and talk to them about farm safety. You know, that's just wanted to say that.
There's a question here.
Thank you, Chairman. Jim Dockery, sorry, from the Farmers Services. A couple of things, I suppose. One, well done to Niamh for spearheading a super project here, and the work that has went into it is fantastic. And I suppose every organisation needs a good leader, and I think that Niamh has shown that and been particularly supportive to the team of mentors. I do the safety audits for social farming, and John, as mentioned, has been part of that. And you know, it's probably related to Alice's question about the mentors going to a farm. When farmers know you're going there, they're prepared. And you know, I get maybe 50 calls a year for social farming to visit the farm. They all do a safety audit before they take part. And some of them will tell you straight out, look, I've done nothing until you came. You would expect the opposite. You'd say, well, look, we'll do everything before you come and have the place looking wild. And it's ironic the way people think, and I suppose it's interesting. You know, I suppose we're all mentors when we go on to farm in a way, because you're learning and chatting and talking generally. But there were quite a lot of them will do nothing. They say, look, I left everything as it was, and I want you to tell me now what I need to do, and then I'll do it. And they will do it, and we get them to send back. So I suppose it's probably a lesson from the likes of inspectors going on to farms as well. First of all, if you don't have a contact, or they're not expecting you, it's a different thing. When they don't, and I presume if all your mentors would have arranged visits with farms in advance, they know you're coming at a certain time and so on. So I suppose.
Yeah. No. Yes. Like we pre-arranged a meeting, and I think because we were farmers, they did nothing really to change the farmyard before we arrived. And one guy even openly spoke to me about like the only kind of other inspection that goes on is the Board B inspection, right? And farm safety is tied in with that. And he says when he's being audited for a Board B inspection, he actually has 2 bangers of tractors in the yard, and he takes them out, he parks them both in the name of the yard, so that the Board B inspector cannot identify these tractors and address the situation. So, like, that's the cover-up that can go on at official level. But like when you're as a mentor and you're peer-to-peer, that's not the case. He openly told me that. You know what I mean? So that's, you know, a way better approach. So straight away, you know, it's raised, he in his own mind now has raised awareness of that situation. And, you know, before he was just ducking and diving, but now he knows it's a health and safety problem and he can deal with it. So that's the whole awareness and behavioural change that needs to happen. You know what I mean? You need to get guys thinking about it in a positive, constructive manner.
Yeah, just the other 2 comments quickly was one in relation to your slide, Niamh, about the vets and the service providers calling, or their impression or their view of farmers. And I think there was, look, there were 8 questions that was down, and all of the 8 of them, I suppose, were where they saw it has been, the farmers are not as up to speed with safety as they would be. In every one of the 8 questions, they felt they were behind, that there was a much higher percentage. I think that's very, very important, because that's how service providers see the farmers. We as farmers might see it one way, but other people coming onto our farms, they know, because they're scanners, freeze banders, hoof care people, vets, they know exactly what's on the farm. And I suppose they're looking at an average of a good farm, and you have a not so good right beside them, and so on. And the other one is the shows that you have observed, I suppose, need for more safety at agricultural shows, and I think they are 2 things that would be close to my heart, where I do a lot of safety officer type of work for them, and so thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jim. Niamh.
Yeah, just thanks, Jim, very much. To kind of look at the service providers, the partners, and the farmers and farm families. When Irish Running and the Bright Project, Duncannon, Blue Flag Farming Scheme, the New Futures Farming Group, the Health and Safety Authority, were preparing this brief and proposing it. The one thing that was looked at was we can look at farmers and farm families' attitudes and behaviours, but what about the people that actually are on the farm, that visit or work on the farm? So that's the importance that we actually looked at in the surveys, is to engage with the service providers, get everyone's opinion that is on the farm. Because as we see from my presentation, what the farmer or farm family might say, the service provider will have a different. And it's interesting to see that there is similarities there, but there is the differences. And it's important to get everyone's perspective, because the farming is not just the farmer or the farm family, it's the people who is helping them complete jobs, it's the people who's carrying out jobs as well on their farm. So it's important to get everyone's perspective in relation to tackling and improving the social norms around farm safety, health and wellbeing. So as the responses is great to have there, just to see what their attitudes and behaviours was, and then learnings come out of that to benefit your organisations and bodies, hopefully all going well, and to bring that forward. And it's just important to get everyone's opinions involved in the project. So thanks very much.
Sorry, can I just add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Go ahead then.
Yeah, I think one of the beauty of this project was we were an Irish Rural Link project, and I think that we really were the link. The six of us were the link between officialdom, shall we say, and the grassroots. So what we're trying to do between our WhatsApp groups, our constant dissemination of information, and our events, and having our farmyard walks and things like that, we're constantly chipping away at the culture that farmers have around health and safety. A lot of farmers think they know it all about health and safety, think they know it all about mental health. They don't know what they don't know. And so, but they won't talk to people higher up. Just one quick example, a guy, he had a farm accident, or a near farm accident, very lately. He was driving a tractor, and he had 2,500 tons of slurry behind him. He went to a hill near us, was notorious, and he put on the brakes and the tractor took off. And he was very, very lucky. The tractor ended up sideways in the ditch. He went and he spoke to his mechanic. Mechanic told him that if your left foot pedal is not engaged, the brakes don't come on the trailer behind. And as it turned out, his two brake pedals had been disconnected by his daughters the day before. They were changing the matting in the tractor. So when he faced that hill, he put his foot where he normally puts it on the right pedal, and he had only 2 wheels out of 6 engaged. Now that would never have come to the attention of the Health and Safety Authority because it wasn't a fatality. But he rang me and he said, "Do you know about that?" I said, "I didn't." I rang Niamh. "Niamh, do you know about that?" "Jeez, John, I don't. I'll tell Pat Griffin at the Health and Safety Authority, and now Pat is looking into it," because the understanding was that mechanic told him that's a feature in nearly all modern tractors, and no farmer I've spoken to knows about this. So the importance of having your 2 brake pedals connected is the difference between life and death. So we are disseminating information back up the chain as well as bringing it down.
Another question there. Very good point, John. Mary, I'll just take the question, and I'll let you take that. Yeah, we're only getting going. Question then.
Thanks. Difficult to follow that 2 brake pedal series.
Yeah.
The implications of that. My name is Claire O'Keefe. Succession Ireland is my business, but I was one of the members of the steering group, and I'm sure Trustee have asked a group of other people around Ireland to be part of a steering group, and bless her heart, once a month, once every 6 weeks, we'd get an email, meeting scheduled 11 a.m, and like the hammers of hell, she would give a presentation, questions were fired at her. We got to know the mentors whenever we were meeting them, and through the stories, through what they were doing. The work that she did behind the scenes was incredible. She really was a link to us and to all of you. But that's not why I took the microphone. Mary just mentioned that there was no resistance when they went into the farm. And it just struck me, because so often when we have inspectors or some other fellow coming into the area or another woman, what do they want? But no resistance. It shows there was a very different approach and respect for what you were doing. So maybe it might be worth exploring, and I'd like to tease that out a little bit more, that you were welcomed almost. That's just one thing. Someone early on, it might have been Niamh or the minister, I'm not sure, they said the farmer is the farm's greatest asset. And as I think about that, it is so true. We prepare for the board BIA, we prepare for all of the inspections, but taking care of that farmer is number one. And as I was thinking here, you know, the single farm payment, or BIS, as it's called now, and all the new words that are there, if there was a financial incentive some way sewn in there, that perhaps if we were together to attend a sharing and learning space, or have a discussion on another person's farm, where we're not going to be penalised, but that in some way we can learn, and maybe some sort of an attendance of participation or sharing and learning, or whatever terminology is used, a health and safety discussion, where there is some sort of acknowledgement of taking care of the farmer, because without the farmer there is no farm.
Thanks, Mary. You have the microphone. No, you were going to come in on something else, but those are very good points. Very good points.
Well, first of all, in regards to succession, and that is a huge worry, actually, when we're talking to someone from Succession Ireland now, I have come across some farmers worried about even getting married anymore because of succession, and also farmers not wanting to retire, you know, and I think that is a big thing amongst farmers. And I think maybe even using retired farmers, training them up maybe as buddies, might encourage them to retire sooner and have something, a different role maybe. I don't know, that's only an idea. Because they do need incentives. But I found the surveys, they were great for us to gather information, but they also served another purpose, because when a farmer had to do a survey, either by their phone or the first surveys, I did it 2 different ways. The first lot of surveys, I left them to the farmers. I said, do them in your own time, and I collected them. And they took their time, and they did, like, they all gave great feedback on those surveys. They all filled in, a lot of them filled in the comments sections as well and gave great feedback. And the second lot I did all mostly online. But the surveys also instill safety in their heads by literally thinking about the question and writing it down or texting it in. They had to take time to do that, and that alone made them more safety conscious. And I think not too regular surveys, but maybe shorter surveys every now and again is a great way of getting farmers to think more about farm safety. And I think, but I do think there needs to be incentives, there needs to be, you know, help, you know, and, you know, monetary help. And I do think that every farmer is different. So you have to, by going out to the farms, like you were talking about building relationships, how do you do it slowly. You don't rush into it. You have to see what their personality is like first, because they're all different. And you know, I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
Okay, Niamh, because we're coming to an end of this session, so Niamh.
Sorry, no. Just to add, thanks very much, Claire. I'm sorry if I annoyed you. I suppose just to kind of touch about the additional payments to farmers, like looking at doing, like what I touched on in my presentation, the safety solution certificate, which I was talking to Pat about, more practical, on the ground, one-to-one, in a group, on a farm, rather than a classroom approach, is the way to go when you're addressing farm safety, health and well-being. This is where the accidents occur, unfortunately, so it's important to actually have it on the farm. Especially, I suppose, looking at one of the events we organised, especially in Cork, we had a farm safety inspector from the Health and Safety Authority, and that was very practical. Farmers were learning from each other, they felt a level playing field, they were able just to say what they thought, and they learned from each other that way. And that was one thing that highlighted throughout us, but also the importance of having something there that would add to the basic payment scheme, that would incentivise farmers. Well, look, if I do this course, it could be on health and well-being. If I do that course, it's an additional payment. And like there'll be different courses available to them at different times a year that would add to their basic payment scheme. That was one thing that we kind of came up with, and it's just in consultation with Pat Griffin as well, we were like looking into it about it. But there's just so much out there to do, like, and if you impact the basic payment scheme, it's more to add to it, you know, and that will incentivise it. That's what we thought anyway, yeah.
Okay, I know there's one final question.
Councillor Frank Roach from my council area, County Cork. I'd like to thank the Minister, and Niamh, I'd also like to thank you for your presentation. You fit an awful lot in a very short period. I don't know how you got through it all so fast. Now, the Minister said that we're nearly good friends at this stage. Since 2020, I'm constantly ringing that Minister. about farm abuse and authority abuse and legal abuse. I'm elected in Fermoy, but I'm getting phone calls from the 26 counties of farmers that are suffering an awful lot of inheritance. I started off inheritance, I got known for inheritance, but it has gradually grown into legal abuse and into authority abuse. Farmers, when they get a lot of letters from the Board B inspections, when they have a lot of inspections, they're nervous, they're frightened. Now, one of the things the minister said was a distracted mind. I could fill a GA pitch with people that have told me stories where they got the solicitor's letter, they got the letter from the authorities, this letter or that letter, and that was the day the accident happened. I had one man, I was in the county, who rang me. He was having a family dispute. And when he rang me, he told me the day he gets the solicitor's letter, his mind just goes all over the place. He rang me another day and he told me he had lost the fertilisers put on the road. And a neighbour came on and helped him to put it back on. They looked for the arc clips or the spring clips more if any farmers didn't know what they're talking about. And they couldn't find them on the road. And he put his hand in his pocket. He forgot to put on those clips. Now sadly, that man is with us no longer. Because I heard of a person dying in his area, in a farm accident. And when I checked it out, that was the man. I won't say how he got killed, but he was killed in a farm accident. I know, and everybody in the area, because I went down and I visited his neighbours and I told them the stories I had with him. That man was not killed in a farm accident. He was murdered by our legal system. It was a family dispute where there were sisters sending solicitors' letters. It's bringing tears to my eyes when I think of the way that man died. And we need to address what our legal system are doing to farming. I see a lady in front of me here, and I think I recognise her from the Katie Hannon show last week. And they were talking about prenuptials for the farmers. I was invited on today a 103 FM radio station to do a programme on prenuptials. I was nervous about doing it because I don't want to have anybody thinking that I'm siding with the farmer or siding with the wife. But the amount of farm problems that are going on with husbands and wives at the moment. And we have a saying down our country that if you go up to the altar, you come down with half a farm. While it is technically right, it is not. You have 4 people involved in a marriage dispute. You have the husband, the wife, and the legal system. And it's not the wife who's bringing half the farm. It's the legal system that's taking half the farm. And the poor wife or the husband takes what's left. And we have to address what's happening legally in our farms. Because farmers, that's just causing an awful lot of distractions on the farms. Now, another area you're talking about is the 16-year-olds driving tractors. I'm an agricultural contractor all my life. And I can tell you, a good 16-year-old is far better than a normal person that's not committed to driving tractors. And we do need to train our 16-year-olds. Fair enough, do courses with farm relief, do things like that. But certainly, don't stop the 16-year-olds from drawing silage, because if you do, there'll be no silage drawn. In every outfit in the country, we're depending on young people in college holidays, because we cannot get nobody else. Now, you're talking about cover-ups in farms. I know it well, and I see it every day of the week. Farmers are the best in the world to try and cover up these things. And we need to educate the farmers more.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm not going to give you any comment, but I think the points you make are valid, and I think it's part of, I suppose, when you were talking, Ned, you know, when you went into a farm, they openly were able to say things to you that maybe they should say to themselves even, and I think you're coming to that point. Look, I really have to close this particular session because we just need to take a very short 5-minute comfort break. Because I have a...
Seamus, can I just say one side?
Yeah, just one thing, Ned, and then you finish.
I know, as on behalf of the Ministers here, I just want to thank Niamh. I think the project wouldn't have taken off, it wouldn't have grown as it did, only for her. She did a fantastic job, and we as mentors are delighted with her.
Known as the Development Officer of Mental Health Ireland, covering many of the Midlands. Now I know her for a long time, and she will explain in greater detail her work. I've mentioned him a couple of times because it's a vocation, but Pat Griffin is a native of Tipperary. He's working with the Health and Safety Authority. I'm not saying many years, Pat, but you're with them a long time. And again, you've really talked passionately, particularly about farm safety, and in the sense you really this will come across. John Canny, who I've met many times, from Galway, I think, just to get the hurling part of it right, or football maybe. An inspector with the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine for the last 20 years. If I may start, I think I'd start with you, Pat, if you don't mind. Pat, you heard lots of things there today. I mean, one thing you told me once upon a time, that the older generation, they might be smarter in the head, but the limbs don't move as fast as the head does, so getting out of the way or not, is whatever. Is there anything else that surprises you about this, or are you just seen it all before kind of thing?
First of all, Seamus, thank you and Irish Rural Link. I've always been impressed by Seamus on media when he talks about the rural community and the amount of support he gives to the rural community. From the lack of connectivity with broadband to transport and the price of diesel, he's always a great advocate for the rural communities. And I must say Niamh has been an inspiration on this EIP, and the mentors have been brilliant. Obviously our biggest problem in farm safety, and we've been dealing with it for a long time, is the age factor. And the current average age of farmers, it's in around 58 years old. There's not enough young people coming in. We hear about succession problems. John points out 4 farmers across the valley that have no successor. That's just in one area. It's a big, big problem, and it's not being dealt with properly by Europe, and it's not being dealt with nationally properly. And when young people see their fathers having to work 60 hours a week and still not get a great return, particularly in some aspects of agriculture, it's not an attractive proposition. And anywhere is better than that farm, so they will try to keep away from it. I think we need to start by changing the whole mindset of farmers in relation to where they see themselves as individuals. There's too many farmers that spend all their lives working, never take a break, never take a holiday, never do anything for themselves, and they become totally engrossed in the farm and what they're doing. And their whole identity in this world is tied up with being a farmer. To such an extent they won't take a break. And what I'd like to see is some way of trying to change the mindset of farmers to say that they are important people within our community, that they have other things to offer, and they get involved with other things. And if they get involved with other things and have outside interests in the farm, maybe then they might change their aspect of it, and they might actually change their mindset and not see themselves as only a farmer. Because when they get to the age of 70, because they're so tied with the farm, they can't retire, they can't step back, they can't reduce what they're doing, because their whole identity is tied into it. Whereas if they had an outside interest, they could scale down and become something different within their society. And that, I think, is a big problem. And farmers continuing to farm at the same intensity in their 70s and 80s it's a recipe for disaster, and we see the output.
Absolutely. Fionnuala, you've worked a long time, you're very experienced in the whole area of mental health across society, not just in farming circles. So looking at this project, I'm just wondering, did you see something different, or again, is this there and this project is bringing it out further and bringing it to people it should? What was your reaction?
Absolutely. It was such a breath of fresh air when you contacted me to deliver a workshop with the mentors, and I remember well of a Friday morning, and I was actually very stressed that morning, if you remember me, but we got through it. But anyway, there's no point delivering a stress or mental health workshop unless you're stressed yourself anyway. But the important thing is, see, a husband for a farmer or a farmer for a husband. And you know what Pat has said there is just so true. Our wedding was a little bit mixed up. I had it booked for one date, and I phoned the church, because my brother was a member of the order. Oh no, you can't get married on a church holiday in Dublin. So I had to go off and find a new hotel and everything. Then I'm at an airport for our honeymoon, and I hear my husband, he was then officially my husband, phoning and talking to his father. Now, we got married on a Monday, I think it was, and this is now Wednesday in Dublin Airport, or in London, Heathrow. And he said, I'll be home at the weekend. And I'm thinking, we got married on Monday, it's Wednesday, and you're going to be home at the weekend. I gave him a kick in the ankle, and I said, you won't be. So, but you know what, it took years again before we went on a holiday, so it's just so true. And Claire, somebody said earlier on, like, you know, in terms of being that farmer and that farmer's wife, it's very important we don't forget the role of the wife, the mother, the children in all of this process as well. That I realised as well, I'm not going to see a family holiday. And so I used to just take the kids off myself. Every year I was losing one because it was so boring to be on a holiday with their mother. But the thing is, though, you're so right, Pat, but families, wives, partners, they can influence making that break and just making it happen. But it can be difficult. And it is big, and we've discovered it, haven't we, Niamh, like that, you know that 70% that don't take a holiday, we need to change that, Pat, and break down the barriers that mental health isn't about mental illness, it's about your own self-care, and we need to get that stronger message out there. But sadly, we see the downside. And in one little survey we did, one gentleman said, why does he want to learn more about mental health? Because he said, I want to be able to talk about it in my kitchen to my children, say. So, and then I think, Pat, we've often discussed farmers and their stress and their struggles is different, but we all have struggles in life. And if, you know, it's about that self-care message, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, it does, and I think one of the things that emerged today was, in fact, the radical idea that a farmer should actually take 2 weeks off in the year and do something or go somewhere, or imagine that for a radical idea you'd revolutionise. And yet in every other profession, it doesn't matter what the profession is, people do stop what they're doing for 2 weeks in the year and go off, maybe learn a language, maybe go off to Mallorca, doesn't matter, but go.
But don't go
and
for self-care.
I think it's quite...
Like I used people say, where are you going on your holidays, Finola? And I'd say, self-catering holiday, where? Like at a farm, at home. Say, you know, I wasn't going too far. But I think John McNamara will know about this as well. We're involved in an Erasmus Plus project and to do with farm resilience and that, developing tools across Europe, and we'll be linking in with Niamh as well on it. But in Finland, all farmers get 28 days. Now they're paying into a fund, but they're guaranteed 28 days off the farm and 2 visits to a counsellor or to a GP. Now I know it's like state funded and they contribute to it, but the difference that makes, and they can use that, take the whole 28 days, they can take a day, 2 days a week, and it's recognising that and building that in to self-care.
It's something to be followed up, so we have to really look at that. John, you're an inspector of the Department of Agriculture, and you're listening to all of this, and you're listening to people like Ned earlier on saying, and the likes of you guys come around, there might be a little bit of over-preparation and maybe covering up and all the rest. What do you think of that? Does that annoy you, or?
No, it's perfectly natural, so it is. I know when my own work has been audited or examined, I'm under pressure, and what I want is to get the auditor out of the door as quickly as possible, and it's quite understandable from the farmer's perspective as well. They're under scrutiny, their income, their payments are maybe under depending on the outcome of that inspection, and that's where the peer-to-peer has a plus, that it's a colleague, a neighbour, friend coming in, helping you to work through safety issues on your farm. You know, whether it's 4B or the Department of Agriculture, at the end of the day, it is some form of officialdom, And it's the farmer's mind, I want to get this over as quickly and I want a clear result, you know. So finding that tractor that isn't up to standard at an inspection, if that's the focus of the inspection, is a concern, you know. So whereas the buddy, the real benefit of that I see is that it's somebody coming in on a par with yourself, you're talking through things as a fellow farmer, identifying what needs to be done. And I think what Niamh reported was that giving you a dig out of doing that, and coming up with the solution. And as well as that, when you come around to, we say, to the mental health or the general quality of life, that is someone that, you know, if you need a reassuring second opinion on something, again, whether it's safety related or livestock related, it's someone that you now have built a relationship with. And similarly, you know, it is good to have that reassuring second opinion, because when you are under pressure, you know, a problem shared is a problem halved. So there is that natural distinction between an official control and, you know, and I think, you know, farmers in general appreciate that, you know, where there's schemes, you know, there has to be controls, but I think it's the balance around, you know, those controls is what concerns the vast majority, you know. So that, I suppose that's really where I see the buddy system having a real strong benefit to farmers. Obviously the challenge from the EIPs is, you know, all of the positive outcomes from those, see how they can be scaled up into the future for, we'll say, for a broader reach of farmers, you know, to get to all 130,000 or so farmers. That's where the challenge is, you know.
Pat, in the Health and Safety Authority, you deal with, you know, accidents in all across the spectrum, not just farming. What do you notice that's either always the same or different from other sectors, or is it just another accident that happens to happen on a farm? What do you notice about the farm specifically that separates it from other workplaces?
Well, I think certainly fatalities on farms are generally down to people doing too much, trying to work too hard, and under pressure. And they are, unfortunately, the more stressful scenes that we ever get involved with. And I've worked for a long time with Embrace Farm, and Embrace Farm are here and they do fantastic work for families that have suffered loss or injury. And, you know, there's something particularly horrific about a farm fatality, because the family is left working in the same location where the fatality happened, because 95% of them are happening in the yard with the machinery that they use, and then the farming family have to continue to work in that environment where they lost that person. So that's how sort of particularly horrific the farm fatalities are. I've investigated many of them. The first one actually was to a three-year-old child who was reversed over by a tractor trailer operated by the father. Children screaming in the trailer that were in behind, and when the farmer stopped, he happened to be on top of the child. He had to get back in and drive off the child before he picked him up. What struck me about that was my own first child was 3 years of age, and I went home that evening. You know, and to think of the lost life, the lost opportunity, you know, it has coloured what I've done for the rest of my life. I mean, I've been looking at farm safety for 16 years now in the Health and Safety Authority. I'm in the authority for 32 years, I may as well mention it. And certainly when I took over, I wanted to make sure, number one, that farmers had the information that could help them manage their farm safely, that it was easy to access, and that every interaction they had with a health and safety inspector was a positive one. Even if the inspector was giving them jobs to do or improvements to make, it had to be positive. We have to keep safety in a positive light. We have to make it as easy as possible. And I think that has coloured what is happening out there. The vast majority of farmers have a positive attitude towards health and safety. They don't see it as a negative. Okay, it can be a nightmare to deal with, and sometimes they want to go, but it's not seen as a negative. And I think on the front of your brochure there, one of the most important comments there is that front of this says managing risk together. You know, it's not just the the farmer that has to manage the risk, we have to help them, and the department have to help them. Teagasc, Embrace Farm, we're all in this together, we're all at the same sort of objective to try to manage risk together, because there is risk in relation to operating a farm, and it's about managing it together to help each other and do it, and building a network in the community where you've got linked people that will give advice and help people out is critically important, and having buddy systems. And lots of farmers are isolated. We talked about isolation earlier on. There's often or not 3 or 4 jobs in the year that farmers should not be working on their own. And it's then that they need a buddy system. They need a network to pick up the phone and say, listen, Harry, can you come over to me tomorrow? I'm doing such and such job, and you're doing it, I'll help you. That is absolutely crucially important. And building that alone can actually stop a lot of injury and death on farms.
And absolutely, Pat. I remember when I was a lot younger, because my father was much older, the thrashing season came around, and basically every household in the area knew that one member of that household would be with a neighbour for the next 3 weeks, because you needed a crowd at thrashing, and that was where the medal system came from as well, and the buddy system. John, I'm not going to put you, I know you're the Department of Agriculture, but I don't want you're not the Minister, so you can't talk about funding, etc. But in Irish Rural, we have this habit of establishing things and then hoping they'll take off. And probably the more successful was when Irish Rural set up rural transport programs back in the late 90s. Everyone thought it was a kind of a nonsense thing, it would never take off, etc. Now you have local link groups all over the country. We're only barely involved, but we did start the process and we introduced what was a radical notion. I'm just wondering, John, first of all, the buddy system or Farmers4Safety, managing risk together and mentoring, we passionately believe in this. I'm not asking you for commitment, but how do you see us progressing this so that either the department or someone could take this up and make it happen on a more regular and developed basis? Because I guarantee if Niamh had her way, every farmer in the country would be involved. So can you give us first of all, your own view of the buddy and mentoring system and how we can spread it around better?
Yeah, I suppose, as I said earlier, it's very positive in that, that engagement with the neighbours, and it brings together the metal type of approach to things, whether it's farm safety or something else. Getting the cattle dosed is the objective. Obviously, safety is the aspect of it we're looking at here. I suppose funding is the biggest challenge with all of those, and to get, I suppose, the commitment and the motivation that you have with Niamh and the mentors here to replicate that around the country. The department, since the appointment of Minister Hayden, has a dedicated budget each year. Now, it wouldn't be sufficient to cover the entire country on this, so it wouldn't, but certainly the department is open to proposals on various approaches to farm safety, health and well-being. And I think the key is that it's not just safety, it's the health and well-being, because there's an appreciation or a greater awareness now that all three are interlinked, that if a person is under pressure with one, they're more vulnerable to succumbing to an issue with the other. So there is, the department does have funding for initiatives. The proposals are brought to the department and they're evaluated to see how they can be scaled up. Sometimes with the department funding or by co-funding with other authorities and agencies and maybe sectors of the industry. But it's certain that the department always welcomes, we'll say, good proposals that it can support and engage with the farming community and organisations on. So I would see that as being one of the ways that the department can, either provide financial or other supports to enable that to be rolled out across the country and to get to be the better reach. The challenge always is that you can break down any group of people in society into ones that are easier to reach and the ones that are more difficult to reach. And sometimes the ones that are difficult to reach are the ones that are maybe more remote from, we'll say, the good practices, and feel lonely and feel under pressure and are taking those chances that will prove fatal or to themselves or family members. So I think that's the way going forward, is to see how, because the department itself cannot, and isn't expected, cannot deliver this on its own. It needs buy-in from farmers, from organisations that work in farming and in the rural community, and with expertise and with motivators as well, to get people involved. So I think it's no one group or organisation can sort it, and no one, there's no one quick fix. It's a long, slow progress. I think it's something like in the past, there was the ad on television, buckle up, the safety belt ads. Those ads are practically redundant now. Everyone puts on their safety belt when they're getting into a car. And it's that mindset that has to change. A lot of it is behaviour. While we talk about safety and what to do, most farmers know what they need to do. They have that knowledge. The intent to do with the vast majority of them is that there's other pressures today, and that's something I do when I get time. And unfortunately for some, time catches up with them before they get a chance to do it. But I think coming back to your original question, it involves everybody. No one organisation, department or other will solve it on their own. But as Pat referred to there, managing risk together, everybody coming together can eat into that and chew away at the statistics.
Okay, John. Well, as you probably gathered by now, we'll be chasing wherever we can to get buy-in. I'm going to leave the final word before I finish up with Fionnuala, because I think mental well-being is something that people don't think automatically when they talk about farm safety. Is there any way we could put that to the top of the priority?
I couldn't but help think when Minister Hayden just mentioned about, I kind of wrote it down to be able to use it again, that when you're busy and you get distracted and you miss the manhole, which does happen, but something, you miss out on your mental health and your well-being as well when you're being busy. And it's about, we know that farmers are very self-sufficient, they're very caring towards their animals, they bring in the vet, but do they go? And your research has shown that visit to the GP, and it can be so reassuring, just go to GP and find out that you're healthy. People don't like to go to the doctor in case they find out something they don't like. And it's the same for in terms of worrying and anxiety. And again, it's been shown that farmers mightn't necessarily talk to their wives, to their families, I'm worried financially. And and they don't have to open up in that conversation. And because we all have mental health, and we're running a campaign at the end of the month, Hello, and it's really, the idea is to say hello to somebody, to engage, have that chat, and what opportunities that there are there for you. But so we all have that mental health, and to put that value on that, and as you said, they're interlinked, and maybe that's where we can start bringing those sessions more into the farmyard and have that discussion there. And the other thing, and somebody mentioned it earlier on about the the marts, they were a really big meeting point, and aside from I presume it's back happening again, the festival down in Clare where lonely men and women go down, what do they call it?
Matchmakers. Matchmakers.
What is it?
Anyway, they know.
I didn't have to go there. My husband didn't have to go there either. Listening farming, there you have it. But the thing is, though, say a lot of those sales are gone as well, online. And I saw my husband under stress and wanted to go to the Ballinasloe Mart. And so he phoned, he said it's online, and he said, look, would you set that up? So I went into the kitchen, set it up, and I said, there you are, Tim. Pressed the button, I didn't know it, I bought a ram. So there was no demand for it, obviously, not a great fan. No, but that loneliness, that isolation is such a negative, really, and it's about, and I know, Pat, you're all for get out there, have that cup of tea, have the chat, and make time for it. So it's about self-care and empowering. So we can get the message across the same way it's about health and safety on your tractor. What about the health and safety of your mind and your body as well? Yeah.
That's a good way that's good to have the last word on that. Look, we're coming to the end. There'll be a light lunch after this, but just to say a couple of things, and if I may just introduce what I'm going to say with a slight amusing joke, because in Ireland, you said about your Hello programme, in Ireland we're always credited with, we always say, hello, how are you, you know. But I heard Tommy Tiernan, and I'm not going to do Tommy Tiernan on you, but I remember him saying, you know, in Ireland we're known for saying, hello, how are you? We don't really want to know how you are, we just say, hello, how are you? We don't. But sometimes it's no harm to actually say to somebody, how are you? You know, and wait. Because there might be something on their mind that they just need to let out, or to release, or just to say anything. And it's amazing if that small second is allowed to actually answer the how are you question. It's good, but you know, Tommy went off into a long speed of language about how the white one, I don't want to know how you are, etc., etc. So you can take the joke the rest of the way.
Sorry, just add on that, one just mention about how are you is one of the things that has been rolled out there in the last couple of years, funded by the Department of the HSE and the Department of Health, is the On Firm Ground. And that is part of the how are you, where for anyone not familiar with it, it's where in the initial phases the job advisors and the private agricultural consultants are being equipped with some basic training around mental health and how to engage with farmers, so that if you do meet the farmer, if they do meet the farmer at the gate and says, how are you? And the farmer does say, Jays, I'm not feeling great, the way things are going, I'll be told off to whatever. That rather than shying away from that conversation and moving on to talking football or talking farming, that they can actually say, well, is that really how you feel? You know, maybe we should come up to the house, have a cup of tea with your partner, talk to the doctor, you know, and get helplines. Now, they're not being trained as counsellors, but they are being given with the basic information to be able to, if they do come across a situation like that, they can, you know, get the farmer or someone in the family to take that and go and get the help and assistance that they need. At the initial stage, it was focused on agricultural advisors and FOS advisors, both Chagas and private, but the department is looking at extending that out beyond those as well, so that there's as much reach as possible, which we're talking about earlier, across the country, because is to get the reach is what you need, and not to shy away from the answer when it does come about how are you. So I think that is one of the programs with the HSE and the Department of Health that is looking at the mental health aspect of farming, you know, because while there's rightly a lot of talk about safety, the mental health and well-being are equally as important, you know.
Well, thanks for that. I didn't realise. That's nice to hear, and that's a very nice development. And I'm sure we'll spread that around as well. And look, we're coming to the end, and first of all, I have a whole lot of thank yous to say. But just to say, in terms of this project, it is a farm mentoring program, and one of the ways they delivered farm development back in the day, when Muckin and Farmer were involved very much in the 60s and later, Alice will confirm this, it was about bringing people on farm walks, it was about farm evenings. I think we all remember that. And to walk on what was regarded as an ordinary farm, there were always an awful lot more ordinary than mine, I can tell you, but to let people see actually how you can change the way you farm. But it's the same thing. And that is why we will take up an opportunity to meet with Minister Hayden shortly after this, because I mean, I don't really care how it's done, but we need to develop a program where farmers, farm mentors, with proper remuneration. And now, when John said they were getting paid, believe me, I don't think he's doing it for the money, because it's not that much. But the point is, they have time as well to worry about. But we do need farm mentors in every parish. We really do. We need people to be able to notice, even when they're on a farm, just to walk in, that you can save a life in a second. And you can walk out of that farm and nobody knows you saved that life because there was no issue. You can notice something wrong, you can see or a person rushing, as John said, somebody's rushing to this, that and the other, and even if you just say slow down, what's the rush? You could actually save a life, because that person could jump into a car, drive off, and sadly do fatal damage to somebody, maybe their own child. So this is why I would love, my dream, if the great Martin Luther King, who had a dream, my dream is to have farm mentors in every single parish. That would be my dream from this, led by Niamh, of course. That's what I would say in conclusion, and that's what I will ask you to help us as we try to bring support for that programme. Not too precious about who owns it, and simply precious about that it's there. Because I think it's a lonely profession, it's become more lonelier. Who was it said earlier, you know, the chat at the creamery is gone, even the after mass thing is gone, all that social fabric is gone, and less farmers, older farmers mainly, are now involved. So all that's missing, and we have to deal with that. In terms of today and this project, of course, I thank sincerely the Bride Project, Duncannon, and of course Farmers New Futures for Farmers. Those are the three programs that came with us on this journey. We hope to bring a lot more as we progress. I do thank the work of the steering committee. We heard from Claire and from others this morning, and all of the people who put a lot of investment and time into this. I do thank the Health and Safety Authority, who have really been strong advocates of this kind of programme, and who, you know, never let us down in the form of Pat, because as Pat said, at the end of the day, we all remember, and in his case he probably has seen the sad cases, but those of us in farming will know the near misses, and they are the sort of memory that makes you wake up in the middle of the night. I have a couple of them myself. So you do remember all those things. So Niamh, thanks, many thanks have been said to you again. To the rest of the staff of IRL who are dotted around here, taking photographs, it's a team effort, so I'd like to thank you sincerely for being here. I see John Crane, our board members here as well, so appreciate you making the journey as well. It's a very good cause. It's a cause that will save a lot of pain and hardship and allow young children to grow up and become adults instead of losing their life in an accident, or allow the farmer or his wife or his partner to remain alive as well, because accidents can happen. Any person on the farm, whether they're visitors, whether they live there, it can happen, and when they happen, it's tragedy. And really the attitude that the minister said, we have to get away from excusing the accident because it can happen. We have to say, why did it happen, what went wrong, and why must it never happen again?